What can you expect of the real estate market as we head into the spring 2024? That's the number one question I do get asked these days by the buyers and sellers alike. So that's what we're going to dive right into here in this video. This is what we're going to do. We're going to divide this video into three parts. First, we'll look at how the year unfolded as we enter into the Q1 of 2024. Then we'll look at some data that we have at hand from the real estate boards. I'll share my screen here with you, and I'll also share my 2 cents as to what, as a real estate agent, I'm experiencing and seeing these days working with the buyers and sellers alike. And then finally, we'll conclude this video based on the information we have at hand and some predictions that we have on record that will help us decide the trajectory of the market as we head into the remainder of 2024. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. So just before we dive right in case this is your first time to the channel, be sure to subscribe and tap on the bell for notifications so you can be the first to learn about the current market in and around Kitchener, Ontario. My name is Dharmik Dixit. I'm a local real estate agent serving Kitchener and surrounding towns. I help many families with their move in and around Kitchener, Ontario, and I absolutely love it. So whether you're thinking of moving in 9 days or 9 months, be sure to reach out. You can give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, or even schedule a Zoom call. All the info you will find right below in the description. I'll be more than happy to help you and your family with a move in and around Kitchener, Ontario. So if you look at the Q1 for 2024 and how the year began, it was pretty slow start to the year, at least until the first half of January, where we did not see that many listings come up the market. And at the same time, buyers were not back in the market just yet after the holidays. So, that's very typical for the real estate market. Typically after that third week of December into the second week of January, we don't see a lot happen in the market from both the buyers and the sellers alike. And that was pretty typical for this year as well. Now, as we entered into the second half of January is when we saw like new listings setting up the market, market gradually coming to that normalcy where we see, regular listings coming up the market and the buyers also are back in the market, which kind of did continue as we entered into the month of February and now in March. Although I would say February was a sluggish month for overall sales. But, if I were to look at December to Jan, definitely things picked up. Jan to Feb, pretty steady and sluggish. And then, right now, as I'm recording this video, we are in March of 2024, pretty much at the end of this quarter. I can say the activity is pretty slow and sluggish. So it's not a straight upward curve, I would say, for the real estate market. Although the activity has definitely peaked up, the buyer and the seller sentiments in the market has definitely improved. But still, if you were to compare year over year, we are still at a slow pace for the market in general for this time of the year. All right, so let's dive right into some numbers. So I have actually pulled up the February report for the Waterloo Region Association of Realtors, as you can see on my screen, hopefully by now. And I'll actually include the link to this report in the description below so you can, dive further into it if you would like to. But what I wanted to point out is a couple of things real. If you are a fan of this reports and always dive into it, you probably know this by now, but one thing I always highlight, and it's good on WRAR to point that out as well. You see these median numbers, they don't always necessarily reflect the trend of the market. So whenever you're looking at where the real estate market is heading, one of the great tools you want to use is the home price index tool. And I'll dive into that very first, but just look at this, average sales price for month of February. I mean, while this is good to get a general long-term trend, for example, if you're wondering where we are from at the peak of the market, let's say Feb 2022 was basically the peak of the market, you can say. And we are pretty much around at any given point for any kind of property, whether it's a single detached family, townhome, condo, or semi, we're about, you can say, 25% down from the peak of the market, right? So for a long-term trend, it is good. But for a short-term trend, I want to caution you, and this is what you want to pay attention to. Home price index tool is your way to go to really see more so, pay attention to the short-term trend and see where the market is heading. The home price index tool, which is part of this report, and it's a public information available to you. So you might want to look into that. So here it is, the benchmark. This is the MLS home price index tool that I'm referring to, and I've actually pulled it up separately. And within this tool, you can actually do this thing where you can actually, pick a timeline. So you can go as low as back as 20, 30 years. And then you can go, let's say for here, like I've done last 4 years. from Feb 2020 to Feb 2024. So, and you could actually pick, let's say, a particular type of house that you're tracking. Let's say someone is looking for a price of a townhome and interested in that, they could do that. So that's also the customization option in this tool is pretty cool, and it actually does help you really track as to where the trend is heading. So that, and you again, within a particular city, this is again for the Waterloo region, but for whatever town you live in, you could actually pick a city and also the part of the city. So here, for the sake of this example, I'm going to use Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo as a whole. And again, for the property types, I'm going to keep it broad and general. So to give you guys an idea, how I said, December was kind of, sluggish and slow. January is when we saw market activity pick up a little bit, and you can see it here, right? The benchmark price in the KWC in January, for example, in Cambridge, was 747 from the December, which is 706. And we saw the same for Kitchener-Waterloo, 705 to in January, 714. So again, that was pretty steady. But then again, that trend continued into the February to kind of bring it up further to 729, as in, again, these are the composite average prices for the month of February only for Kitchener-Waterloo, where about in Cambridge, it pretty much remained steady between Jan and Feb. So overall, I would say February, as I mentioned, was a slow and sluggish, and the March continued to be the same. We are pretty much at the same level as where we were in January. We'll see, what the actual report looks like when it does come out in a couple of weeks from now. But the home price index tool is what I wanted to share with you guys to really dive deeper into the data. If you are interested and, if you love these numbers, then like I said, you can go as back as 20 years and really see the trend of prices. And, this is where we were at the peak of the market and how things kind of panned out since then. So that's one tool I wanted to point you out. And this is, again, the average sales price. While these averages are good, but again, what I wanted to highlight here is more so yearly average, not month over month. I don't want to highlight the growth or the loss of prices over a period of month, because that's very short-sighted. But if you look at the year-over-year numbers here, for Feb 2022, for Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo, and the region as a whole, we are pretty much at the same level where we were last February. Now, again, I do want to remind you guys, with the Bank of Canada rate hikes, the pause that came last spring, we saw the market to really pick up and then come down again in 2023. So we'll see how things pan out from here. But this, the average sales price in terms of that, pretty much for any type of house, we are at the same level where we were for the 2023 in February. So year over year, we are pretty much at the same, there's no growth as a whole. Secondly, I do want to look at the average sales price by property type. So single, town, condo, semi, and then you have general for average for all the properties combined. The weighted average, we call it. So again, if you do look at, we are pretty much at the same level as fall last year, you can say. For example, as a whole, October 2023, at all property types around 767, and we are around 756 for now, as you can see. So we're pretty much at the same level as we were last fall, for the sake of this example. And here is what I was referring to. This is a good way to, show you guys what I meant. So let's say if I do Feb 2023, you want to pay attention to the all property types, 761, and then 2 pause in the rate hikes. So the Bank of Canada kept the rate steady, and we saw an influx of demand from where we were in February to 761 as an average price to 839 in June 2023. And that's when they had to really kick in 2 back-to-back rate hikes, and that pretty much slowed down the demand altogether, and it pretty much brought us back at the end of the summer, early fall, to the same level as the beginning of the year. So that's where we are right now in terms of the prices. The other indicator I like to take a look at for you as well, if you're planning to sell, is the average days on market. And even if you plan on buying, this could be very helpful to see, okay, the property that you're looking at has been on the market for longer than average or, shorter than average. So that could help you gauge, your negotiation tactics accordingly. And of course, the response that property is getting will be another good indicator. But pay attention to this. For example, in October, let's say fall last year, on an average taking 24 days for a property to get off the shelf. We did kind of reach it as high as 33. In December was like close to a month, like 31 days on market. And then again, we saw a downward trend, which would also mean that the properties are getting off the shelf relatively quickly. And you can see that downward trend here as we approach from pretty much December into the Jan, like I said, first half of Jan into the Feb, and then like basically early spring into the March. So we see that downward trend, and that again does indicate the increase in the activity, this average days on market. So these are again some of the key data points I wanted to share with you guys. I will include the link to this whole report in the description so you guys can take a look. But like I said, February was pretty slow and steady. But if you want to dive in, I highly recommend the one tool that will definitely give you a lot of insight is this HPI tool, Home Price Index tool. That is a gold standard to really see the real estate trends and where we are heading with the real estate prices in any given market. So as I mentioned earlier, there is improvement in the buyer and seller sentiments about the real estate market in general. And what we are starting to see, a majority of the sellers are actually holding an offer day, offer presentation day for the listing. So they are fairly confident about their ability to generate the multiple offers for the listing. And that's actually happening to be the case. We're not seeing something as crazy as we saw in the 2021 and 2, but what we are definitely seeing is just today I had an offer on one of the detached homes right here in Kitchener, and we had 6 offers for the same property. There was one house in Kitchener that was sold like in 4 days. So, working with the buyers and sellers, like I majority of the time work with the buyers. And what I'm seeing is firsthand is, buyers are having to face the multiple offer situation. Sellers are not open to a lot of preemptive offers. And the expectation is that if you are bringing a preemptive offer before the offer presentation day, it better be something strong and worth looking at. So we are seeing a lot of firm offers that are happening, a lot of, multiple offer situations that are happening, and the sellers are fairly confident about their ability to generate a good response for the property. We were just at my client was actually at the open house in one of the Lakeshore North area. There was a house, a semi-detached house that was listed just last weekend. And she told me there were close to 40 people in the house trying to get into the open house. So we are definitely seeing an uptick in the activity. If you're in the field and if you're working with your real estate agent, you will see what I'm talking about. But that's definitely the case as we enter into the early spring. But like I said, again, let's not conclude the activity and what to expect just yet, because these are too early signs to conclude just yet. But we are definitely seeing that improved sentiments among the buyers and sellers. And as a result, sellers are kind of benefiting in the way that, they are getting slightly above the fair market value. Again, we are not seeing as crazy of offers that, buyers were just recklessly putting out money to get the property. But we are definitely seeing, as majority of the time the case with the multiple offers is, when, the sellers do actually take the advantage of that multiple offer situation and are able to typically get away with, some more money than what the house is actually worth. So that's usually what's happening right now, as sharing my 2 cents as to what I'm seeing and hearing and experiencing working with my buyer clients in this market. And finally, this brings us to the big question as to what we can really make out of this information and what to expect as we head into the remainder of this year for the real estate market. Well, everyone is keeping a close eye, and it's very much dependent on how Bank of Canada manages the monetary policy for the remainder of this year. That will pretty much decide the trajectory of not just the real estate market, but the broader economy as a whole. I feel like, in the month of April, they're going to be steady at the current rate. There's not going to be a rate hike or the, dip or a cut, I would say. But as we head into the June, that's the rate announcement that everyone is keeping an eye on. The economists that I follow, RBC Economics, is also anticipating the first rate cut by the Bank of Canada in the month of June. So if that was to happen, that will definitely fuel activity and the demand into the market. And I'm actually worried about that because, last year we saw that firsthand. Sudden uptick in the demand is not, Bank of Canada is not a big fan of that sudden uptick in the demand and activity. And they will not be hesitant to, do the rate hikes or pause the rate cuts if they have to. Because we saw that again in 2023 of how caution they have been with this monetary policy, because not just doing the rate cut, but just by pausing the rates for two consecutive announcements in the spring last year, we saw sudden uptick in the activity. Spring was the busiest time for the real estate market. Buyer sentiments were really positive, and that definitely prompted the Bank of Canada to do two back-to-back rate hikes in the month of June and July. So that's what's cautionary for this year as well in 2024. So don't get overexcited even if there has to be a rate cut in the month of June, because if we see sudden uptick in the demand or the sudden buyer confidence back in the market, well, that will definitely result in the Bank of Canada to either pause on the rate cuts, or they decide that will pretty much result in further strengthening of the monetary policy as we head into the remainder of 2024. But the data that we are seeing, at least until now, like softening labor market, softening demand definitely, and you can see everywhere around you, like the labor market is pretty bad out there. The job market in general, no matter what town you are or what skill occupation level you are, jobs in general are definitely low. The bankruptcy level is at a 20-year high. So there are definitely signs of a softening labor market, softening demand. We saw the inflation numbers came lower within the range of what Bank of Canada wanted to be within that target range. But like I said, it's too early to predict the whole trajectory of this year just based on this data, because really we have to closely look at how the monetary policy unfolds as we enter into the remainder of this year, spring, summer, and so on. And that will pretty much help us decide as to what to expect and make out of this market. Now, buyers and sellers alike do ask me oftentimes as to, is this really the good time to buy or sell? Well, I would say it really depends on whether you and your family is financially and emotionally ready to make that move is when the right time. Because, even at the peak of the market in 2021 and 2, there were many families and many buyers or sellers who were not ready to make a move or, pull the trigger. And that's completely fine. But what you don't want to do is, be driven by the market sentiments, make a decision of buying or selling real estate, and then later on regret it. Because whenever you are emotionally and financially ready, that's probably the best time, rather than having to time the market about buying or selling in real estate. If your time horizon is long enough, there's no need for you to worry. And secondly, not just the time horizon, but if you stay within your limit, within your budget, your spending capacity, all of that. So if you stay within that limit, then there's no need to time the market. Any time is good for you as long as you and your family is mentally and emotionally ready to buy or sell the real estate. Nonetheless, that's a summary of what we can expect of this market for real estate. I hope you did get some value. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and tap on the bell for notifications so you are the first to learn about the current market in and around Kitchener. Once again, whether you're thinking of moving in 9 days or 9 months, be sure to reach out. All the info is right below in the description. I'll be more than happy to help you make a smooth move in and around Kitchener. Until next time, well, I do hope to see you around town.